السلام عليكم ورحمة الله
حي على الفلاح
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Brothers and sisters, during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, one of the moments of intense persecution was when they wouldn't even let the Prophet ﷺ leave in peace from Mecca. They had it in their intention that they wanted to kill him, that they wanted to completely do away from him, annihilate him and his message. And so even when he ﷺ was seeking refuge and leaving Mecca to go somewhere else, they did not want to give him the dignity of even being a refugee. And they sent people after him. And they were given a bounty reward, dead or alive, bring him. And so one of these men that were contracted as a bounty hunter was a man by the name of Suraqa ibn Malik. Suraqa was very skilled. And where others failed, he succeeded. And we know of different occasions when the Quraysh got very close to finding the Prophet ﷺ, but they weren't able to. Here was a man who got one of the closest. In fact, he saw the Prophet ﷺ with his own eyes when he was in the middle of the desert. Abu Bakr, the companion of the Prophet, the first Khalifa of Islam, the one who was accompanying him on this journey, he was being extra cautious the whole trip. That while the Prophet ﷺ was just going on his way, Abu Bakr sometimes was on his right, sometimes he was on his left, sometimes he was in front of him. And Abu Bakr's fear is rising. That will this be the end of the message? All of these hundreds of people waiting for him ﷺ in Medina that he'll never get to meet. The world will not be able to experience the message of the Prophet ﷺ. These are all the fears and anxieties crippling him at this point. But the Prophet ﷺ was calm, and he was reading Quran. And it happened that Suraqa, as he's getting close to the Prophet ﷺ, that the legs of his horse dip into the sand. After a while, he's able to extract himself, and he starts going again towards it, and the same thing happens again. And a third time, there's even a wall of sand, as if to signify there's nothing that you can do. At this point, he becomes terrified. And he asks for protection from the Prophet ﷺ. The occupier becomes occupied. The abuser becomes the one potentially being abused. And so he now is the one who was seeking vengeance, now he's seeking protection. And the Prophet ﷺ grants him that protection, and not only grants him that protection, but says, and what happens if I also promised you the bracelets of Kisra, the cufflinks of the president in modern terms? That, if you've ever seen any leader of any country, there's always something special about them, right? They might have a seal on their suits. They might be wearing the most expensive watches or jewelry or rings. Here the Prophet was saying the largest superpower at the time, the commander of them, whose name was Kisra or Khusros. I promise you that you will have his bracelets, which were known to be valuable, priceless even. Here was a man in the middle of the desert with just one other companion, with no one else there to help them, with a man who would kill them easily in human terms. And here he was making this big, bold promise. And he says, okay. And he goes on his way. The Muslims later come and they capture many people, including him. He shows his protection. He's put to the side, he has his protection. He becomes Muslim himself. And when the Muslims finally fight the Persians, Umar is in charge, and he knew of this story. And the bracelets of Kisra were brought to him decades later, fulfilling this prophecy, this promise. Umar sees it and says, call Suraqah. And he gives it to him and he says, tell everyone this story. On so many occasions, including this one, the Prophet ﷺ, in the midst of a lot of hardship and a lot of pain, he didn't just bring up that you're going to go past this specific pain that you're experiencing, but you're going to get much more and more and more beyond that. And there's a lesson in this for all of us, brothers and sisters. So often we just think one step ahead. Because when you're going through pain, you don't have time to think about something much more. If someone is actively fighting with you and they're exchanging blows and they're punching you, you don't have time to think, oh, I would really like to have a special dinner tonight. That's the last thing on your mind. You're just trying to, how do I get out of this fight? How do I survive? How do I make the next paycheck? How do I make sure my mom makes it through the treatment she's going through? How do I make sure I get that job that I need? How do I make sure I finish that degree that I've been working on for so long? How do I make sure I get married? How do I make sure I have kids? How do I make sure that I can provide for everyone? Those are the things that are occupying your mind. But the Prophet ﷺ, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but the companions, the righteous, all remind us that don't get stuck in this dunya where problems will come and go, where happiness will be fleeting. Sometimes you'll have it, sometimes you won't. But think of the hereafter where that happiness will be eternal. Many of you may have seen those videos that sometimes go viral where, for example, this young girl, she's picking up seashells beside the beach and she's wiping them down, she's cleaning them, trying to make them dry, and then she puts it back where it goes, and the wave comes again and immediately makes it wet again. You see these and you smile and you chuckle that the action you did only helped for a little bit. And if you truly want to help these sea animals, or you want to make them dry for whatever reason, you bring them up more to shore. You bring them to an elevated place. How true is this for every single person here, brothers and sisters? We often are just thinking about a band-aid to our problems, when Allah is telling us that hereafter is the solution to our problems. That we're down here and we're just thinking about getting here, Allah is telling us to be here. Much, much higher. And you will see that when you really focus on the hereafter, that these problems go away or they become inconsequential in comparison. And you start to learn the lessons behind these, and you start to even take some benefit from these. And you start realizing that had I not gone through this hardship that I'm going through, perhaps I wouldn't taste the sweetness of Iman. Perhaps I wouldn't taste the reality of what it truly means to submit to Allah. The scholars, they comment on this beautiful verse, on this beautiful hadith rather, that ad-du'a huwa al-ibadah. That dua is worship. Prayer, supplication is worship. And they say, how is this the case? Why does dua encapsulate all of worship? And they say that when you pray, how many of us start thinking about, oh, when am I going to head back? When am I going to have for lunch after this? What are we going to do during the weekend? We have all these thoughts taking up our mind when we're in ruku or sajda. May Allah forgive us. We have all of these thoughts going through our head. And so we might not be giving the ibadah the due that it needs. But when you really need something, and you really want something, that dua becomes filled with life. The dua of someone who says, oh Allah, I'm begging you, by all of your names, I am admitting that you are the most powerful and I am powerless. I am admitting that you are in control of all affairs and I am not in control of anything. That dua is so much more powerful than when you're just subhanallah, subhanallah, and you're just repeating like a parrot without even realizing what you might be saying. And so you start realizing that there's layers to this. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes us go through everything we do for a reason. And that perhaps us coming closer to Allah as a result of this pain, or as a result of this dua that we're still making, that us getting closer to Allah is better than if the dua was to be answered immediately. Because once you have it, what more do you want? How many of us made promises, oh Allah, that if you just gave me this one job that I really want, if you just gave me a little bit more money where I wasn't living paycheck to paycheck, I promise I'll spend so much in your cause. And then Allah gave you. Did you keep your end of the bargain? Or did you get busy suddenly buying more expensive things and suddenly you have a more expensive lifestyle and you don't have as much you can give and you're making excuses? What category do we fall in, brothers and sisters? Brothers and sisters, it is easy to just think of one problem, and it is in fact difficult to think several steps ahead. But in elevating our brains to be able to do so, we will find that sakina that we so direly want and so direly need. The Prophet ﷺ, in a very similar incident happening years later, when the disbelievers are surrounding the Muslims and the Muslims literally are digging a trench to save themselves from being exterminated. The companions mentioned that they were under so much fear that sometimes they weren't sure if they could go out to relieve themselves. Under fear that if they went out that they might get hit with an arrow or a spear or some other mechanism. Under that extreme fear, he ﷺ is digging with the companions and making the trenches deep enough so that they're easy to cross over. And as he's hitting these rocks, he's saying, I see the treasures of Rome and Persia in front of me. I see the white palaces opening up in front of me. And the munafiqun, the hypocrites that were there, started to laugh. And they were snickering and saying, look at this man. He's on the brink of death and the brink of losing everything that he ever had. And instead of just focusing on this problem, he's talking about the whole world being opened up to him. But what happened? Did it not come true? Is not modern day Iran what was once Persia? A land filled with the sun? Is it not true the palaces were opened and given to the Muslims who so rightfully deserved them after they sacrificed all the wealth that they had? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made those promises come true, and He can make your promises come true. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله ولكم وللمسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Brothers and sisters, the chapter in Riyadh al-Salihin that we're going over this week is around giving good tidings, glad tidings. That we as Muslims are people that are optimistic, that are positive, that are cheerful, that no matter what's going on in our lives, we try keeping that smile, we try being happy, and we try congratulating others and giving others encouragement. That we're not naysayers, that we're not negative people, but rather that we want to make others happy for the sake of Allah. And that we want to remind people that more goodness will come. Just you wait. that the family of Ammar bin Yasir, Sumayya and Yasir, his parents, as they were being tortured, the Prophet ﷺ was powerless at that moment, but he told them, Sabr ya ala Yasir, فَإِنَّ مَوْعِدَكُمْ فِي الْجَنَّةِ. That have some patience, O family of Yasir, for your final destination will be paradise. People will enter Jannah, as the hadith shares, that Allah will take the last person to enter Jannah, and he will be given two worlds. That one man was given the most punishment and given the most hardship in this world, more hardship than all of us combined, that he will be dipped into paradise just for a second. And he will say, have you ever gone through any hardship? He says, by Allah, I've never gone through any serious hardship. I can't remember anything. That is what's promised to all of us, if we just be patient a little bit longer. He, ﷺ, was someone who kept a smile during the day, and he would cry at night, thinking of his ummah, thinking about all of us. But during the day, it was smiles. Why? Because it uplifted the spirits. That, as the Prophet shared, smiling is an act of charity. Who amongst us went through more hardship than the Prophet ﷺ? A man who lost all of his sons before his death. A man who lost all of his daughters except for one before his death. A man who lost his wife before his death. A man who lost his uncle, his grandfather, his mother, his father, countless best friends and companions that fought in his way. That was kicked out of his own homeland. That was thrown rocks at, made to bleed. But he, ﷺ, someone who was born as an orphan, ended up being the most beloved man ever. Alhamdulillah, I had the opportunity to just come back from Umrah, and it's beautiful to see that when you're visiting the grave of the Prophet ﷺ, as he asked us to, that you see these people that have never been, and they go there and they're breaking down in tears and crying over a man they've never met, and a man that they love more than their own families. You see all this and you just can't help but think of this prophecy, that he ﷺ would be the most beloved, that the most popular name is Muhammad ﷺ in the whole world. This was a legacy that he lived, and it's a living proof for us that we, as followers of Muhammad ﷺ, will have our most earnest du'as answered. It is promised to us. In Surah Al-Duha, Allah SWT says, وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. You will see your Lord will make you satisfied. Did we not find you as an orphan and we gave you shelter? Did we not find you poor and we made you rich? I'll end with this one last story, inshallah, where the Prophet ﷺ was once looking up to the heavens when the Muslims used to face Jerusalem. May Allah help our brothers and sisters in Jerusalem. Amen. The Prophet ﷺ was facing Jerusalem in Qibla. That was the direction they used to pray. But his heart was really towards Mecca, his homeland, the holiest place of Islam. Allah SWT sent down some revelation saying, قَدْ نَرَى تَقَلُّبَ وَجْهِكَ فِي السَّمَاءِ فَلَنُوَلِّيَنَّكَ قِبْلَةً تَرْضَاهَا. So Allah SWT is telling him, قَدْ نَرَى, that we have seen, Allah SWT is acknowledging, we have seen your eyes go to the heavens, and we've seen your heart go towards the Haram, towards Mecca. We will move you and we will put you in a direction that will make you happy. The tarbaha, that term is used again, that you will get pleased, well satisfied. The tafsir of this verse, brothers and sisters, is that all of us, we look to the heavens for so many things. Our hearts make du'as that our mouths don't even have the courage to utter. Allah is telling every single person here, Allah sees you, He hears you, and He will answer your dua. Whether it is in this world or even a better answer in the hereafter. We just have to have a conviction and we cannot give up in our dua. May Allah answer all of our du'as. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us everything that we wish. May He make us closer to Him as a result of the prayers and supplications we make. And may He grant us all Jannatul Firdaus al-A'la. May He cure our sick and heal our wounded. May He make our lives filled with Islam, Iman, and Taqwa. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. وأقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر.